Hi everyone, welcome back. It is almost the new year, and today we're going to be talking about what a prenuptial or premarital agreement is. So, most people have seen in the news Tom Brady and Giselle are going through a divorce, but it feels like their divorce went really quickly. Well, that's because they had a prenuptial agreement or what's called a premarital agreement. And in my office, we do premarital and prenuptial agreements in mediation. And it's really common for people to not know exactly what it is. So we're going to be talking about that today. So for most people, you think of a prenuptial agreement as something the rich and the famous have. You hear of couples getting a divorce who are celebrities and they have a prenup in place. But in reality, prenups are actually becoming much more common for everyday people, not just celebrities. A prenuptial agreement, which is also called a prenup, it's called a premarital agreement, you're going to hear me interchange them throughout the video today, is a contract that's signed between you and your spouse to be before you get married. Now, this agreement is going to dictate all of the information about how your divorce would work if you were to separate. So, for example, how would you divide your assets? How would you divide your debts? Would there be support like spousal maintenance? It's also called alimony or spousal support. Now, I know a lot of people see that as negative. Why would you want to just assume going into a marriage that you're getting a divorce? But in reality, that's not what's happening. So many people see it as something that's negative, where in reality, in our office, we see it as something that's positive. We see it as instead almost insurance for your marriage. What do I mean by that? So, when you're going through a purchase of a home or a purchase of a vehicle, you buy insurance. You buy insurance for your car, but you don't anticipate to drive your car into a pole or to get into an accident. You don't anticipate having to use the insurance, yet you have it there and it provides a peace of mind if something were to happen. Same thing with your house. You have house insurance, but you don't plan on burning your house to the ground. But it would be there if there was a fire or if there was a flood or if something else happened. And so you have that security. A premarital agreement is basically the same thing for your marriage. My clients aren't anticipating that they're going to get a divorce. Actually, we really want them to live happily ever after. What they're doing is they're putting agreements in place not only for if they were to get divorced in the future, it definitely makes the process easier. But in addition to that, what they're doing is they're creating their agreements and how their relationship is going to work. We do what's called premarital mediation, which doesn't have to include a premarital agreement. It's just having those difficult conversations that you should have from the start with your spouse so that you can set your relationship up for success. That includes talking about children. Are you going to have them or not? Who would stay home with them? That would also include things like finances. Who's the spender? Who's the saver? What do you have in debt right now? What do you have in savings? When do you want to retire? All of those pieces that are going to be really important during your marriage. In addition to that, we also talk about values and other goals for the future. If a couple wants to culminate that by doing a premarital agreement, then we draft it and help them go through the process of signing it. Premarital agreements are becoming more and more common, particularly if you want to protect your spouse or your spouse wants to protect you from the debt that they have before they get married. If it's a second, third, or fourth marriage, you've already gone through a divorce, you don't want to go through the difficulty of it again, and if you do, you want it to be easier. If you own anything prior to marriage, it's so common now that you own your own business, you own your own house, you have retirement accounts, you have savings, you have all this stuff built up that you're walking into the marriage with that you already were responsible for before. Those are all going to be really common situations for a prenup or a premarital agreement to work. You have to think the world in terms of legality and getting divorced is all controlled by state and federal law. It's dictating how everything gets divided when you get a divorce. A premarital agreement is basically saying, I'm taking back control. I'm not letting them control how they think things should be divided when we get a divorce. if it were to even happen, I want to set that up for myself for the future. It's kind of like having a will or a trust. You could just go with the court and what they say when you pass away. You don't have any paperwork, you don't have anything prepared, and the court just gets to decide how everything's distributed when you pass away. Or you can have a will and trust in place where you get to dictate how things are determined, not the law. So it's really putting a lot more control back to you and your fiance's hands, and it helps clients feel like they can walk down the aisle with more security, more stability, and more trust in the love that's in their relationship. So that's what a prenuptial agreement is. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to comment or reach out. We're always here to help couples throughout the entire United States work through their prenuptial agreement and find a solution that's going to work best for them. See you next week.